Welcome back to Everything We Know. Yesterday, there were lots of elections on the docket across the country, particularly primary elections, but also there was a big special election going on in South Texas's 34th congressional district. We're going to dive into that here today. Um, as you can see on the map here, South Texas is really the only place where districts are in play at all. The 28th congressional district went to a runoff in the primary for both Democrats and Republicans, in spite of there being an incumbent in Henry Cuellar, just narrowly beat out Jessica Cisneros by less than 200 votes in the runoff election. That's going to be big come November. But it signals a shift away from Democratic politics down there in South Texas. Interestingly, the 34th congressional district, um, which was represented by Vicente Gonzalez, is after redistricting. Vicente Gonzalez got moved over into the 15th district, so he'll be running in the 15th this November. And for the 34th, the representative who was representative of the 15th and got redistricted into the 34th, Faliman Vela, he resigned early in order to take a job at a law firm. Didn't even finish out his term. So it left this open for a special election. Now, Democrats were very, very concerned about this particular district, as well as the other two big districts that we pointed out, the 15th and the 28th in South Texas, because those were opportunities for Republicans to make huge gains with shifting demographics, and especially with the way the economy is right now, definitely not playing well for Democrats. So the biggest candidate that the Republicans put forward was Myra Flores. There was another Republican candidate in there. And then on the Democratic side, there were a couple of candidates over there as well. Sanchez, the Democratic candidate, ran pretty well, wasn't very well funded, didn't run a lot of campaign ads. But down in South Texas, Monica de la Cruz and Cassie Garcia, who are running for those other districts, 28th and the 15th, they basically got together and they campaigned for Myra Flores nonstop over the last several weeks. And they got some pretty notable support. In fact, Elon Musk came out earlier this week and said that he voted for Myra Flores the first time he ever voted Republican. Quote, massive red wave in 2022. And I believe that came out this morning on Twitter. And that's what's very interesting is, Elon Musk seems to be shifting more independent or more Republican over the last couple of years. But for him to come out and say that there's going to be a massive red wave in 2022, I think that's going to come true. And one of the reasons why it's going to be true is because of the economy, but one of the biggest predictors of whether a particular party is going to win or not in an election, or candidate is going to win or not in an election, is not who you want to vote for, but who you think is going to win. When polls ask that question, they tend to be much more accurate than if they just ask, who do you want to vote for? So that it's huge for him to come out in favor of Myra Flores. Granted, he said this after the election was over, so take that with a grain of salt. Didn't really sway the election, but it might sway the election in November because Myra Flores then has to run again in November. This is just to fill out the rest of the term to get us through January. He also says that Ron DeSantis has a really good chance of winning the presidency, so that's also super interesting. All right, so let's dive right here into some of the results. Looking at it in a four-way race between Myra Flores, Dan Sanchez, Rene Coronado, and Juana Cantu Cabrera. Flores got her 50%. If she didn't hit 50%, there would be a runoff of the top two candidates. Right now, They're still tallying everything up, but it looks like she's going to win comfortably with a little over 50% of the vote, and start to serve as the U.S. representative from Texas's District 34. Um, if you go county by county here, there are some counties, the more rural counties, where she just ran away with the vote. Like B County, um, Cameron County was a lot closer, and that's really where the bulk of the votes came from. But she still eked out over Dan Sanchez there. The important number is whether that number there gets over 50. Um, and in some of these smaller counties, she runs up the vote. Um, yeah, and that's really what helped her uh, get over that 50% mark, and beat Democrat Dan Sanchez for that seat that was left vacant by Filamovela. All right, the last thing that I will note here in today's video is that this district, the newly redrawn district, the newly redrawn 34th, voted for Joe Biden by a margin of 15.7%. And for Republicans as a whole, to win by even 3% in this district, it shows a huge 15-point swing, a 15 to 20-point swing, away from the Democratic Party over toward the Republican Party. The reason why that's very key here, is it's indicative of the rest of the country, is how the rest of the country feels, particularly Tejano and Latino voters. We're going to be getting more results, more straw polls coming out of uh, the 34th. So we'll be able to see who came out to vote. Interestingly, it is not a very high turnout election. We can't really expect that for a special election. And so there are some things that we can draw from this. And what we can draw from this is Democrats really aren't enthusiastic about getting out and voting. There's nothing drawing them out to the polls here in November. So things are going to be very interesting. It's really going to come down to turnout all across South Texas in the 28th, the 15th, and the 34th district come November. As for right now, there's a new congresswoman for the Republican Party, in Myra Flores down Texas's 34th. Definitely be on the lookout for what this means in South Texas and across the country, particularly in Latino districts, for how they vote. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Republicans start to flip these seats, uh, especially anything down near the border of Texas, some seats in Florida, maybe some seats in Arizona as well. We'll dive into that here in future videos. But Democrats need to get their act together if they want to retain these districts, and districts that were previously pretty blue, are now over here in the red column. All right, so that's what we got. We'll have more videos out later this week going through other elections and other major news stories. If you like this analysis, go ahead and hit the like button down there, as well as subscribe so that you don't miss any of these videos. We've also got a Twitter, links to which are going to be down there in the description. So we really appreciate you checking it out. And yeah, that's about it for today.